welcome to Archaeopolitics, a MuggleNet.com podcast about politics in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I am back home in San Antonio finally after the first vacation I've taken in 2 years. I've spent the week kind of getting caught up on work and working through the 4th of July, which should be illegal, but whatever. We're not here to talk about work. We're here to talk about Harry Potter, obviously, because this is a podcast about Harry Potter. But before we get to our podcast, I'd like to thank our newest patron, Jordan. As you know, patrons help keep the show alive, and that is everything to me, thankfully. Patrons keep the show free for everyone else, and that's why we've started a series that is only for patrons that is called The Girl Who Lived. And in that series, Helene Karp and I talk about what Harry Potter would look like if the genders were swapped. And if you haven't listened to episode 1 of that series, that episode is out for patrons and listeners alike, so you can get a taste of what we'll be talking about. We talked about the Dursleys on episode 1. Episode 2, we'll be talking about Hagrid, and that will be out on Friday, July 12th. So I'm really, really excited about this series. Now, if you become a patron, you'll get access to that series and many more things, including videos, stickers, depending on what tier you are, recipes, and bonus content. What does your contribution help with if you're a patron? Well, it helps me pay for new podcasting equipment, paying podcast hosting fees, website hosting fees, and other expenses. So again, thank you so much for keeping the show alive. Now, today's episode, we're going to be talking about the politics of information in Chapter 28, The Madness of Mr. Crouch of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling with my good friend, Sam Mattos. I recently saw a picture of Britney Spears, and it looks like she hasn't really changed her style, which is proof that you kind of stop maturing at the age that you peak.
Yeah. Okay.
She was wearing like super low, like skinny, like kind of skinny jeans and a crop top tight.
I'm just picturing that jean dress that she wore with Justin Timberlake.
That's iconic.
I just assume she wears it everywhere. Like she wears that in the kitchen. Like, oh, I'm baking cookies today, and just in that jean dress.
Do you think she just like tries to zip it up every night and is like, it still fits?
Oh yeah. She's like, still got it.
Well, some women do that with wedding dresses, I guess.
See? She does it with that iconic jean dress.
It's truly iconic. I saw a sticker of like a drawing of both of them in those outfits, and I almost bought it because I was like, this is just an iconic time in our collective youth.
Yeah, it's a good way to gauge like how old someone is, and like, oh, I know that you say you're this old, but do you know this moment? Because if you know this moment, then we can continue this conversation.
If you know this moment, that I know we have enough in common for us to be friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, yep. I got you. One of my recent friends that I made after moving to San Antonio, our first friend date, we bonded over all the Mary-Kate and Ashley movies, specifically Passport to Paris. And I was like, nice. I can tell we're going to be good friends just from this.
See, my favorite ones are the earlier ones. So Double Double Toil and Trouble, I rewatch every single year.
Okay.
And It Takes Two is one of my favorites. And then,
oh, yeah, that one's good.
Yeah.
Is that the one with Christy Alley?
Yeah, and Steve Guttenberg.
Mm-hmm,
and it's very 90s. And then my friend that I do the podcast with, her favorite's the later one. So she likes New York Minute. And
yeah, that's the last one.
One of the ones, they did one in London.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yes, I don't remember the name of that one, but I can picture one of them is on like the cover with like a bucket hat, I want to say. I don't know.
So, yeah. And I'm like, I don't even know if I've seen that one. And she's like, what do you mean? So that
you need to watch it. It's amazing from what I remember.
Yeah.
Because they all are amazing.
Like, I know that they won't do one, but I kind of wish that they would do one of just them being like 35 and just being like, oh, we're 35 now.
Maybe they'll do a documentary of them running their successful clothing business, The Row.
Right. I saw a picture of the two of them and someone on Twitter gave them the caption. One of them looks like they've seen When You Die and the other looks like they've seen How You Die.
Oh, no, basically, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, great. They're the Fates. Awesome.
No, they are really into like that boho goth chic look, I guess. Yeah. Which I think is maybe a product of like having to wear all these like super colorful, girly or tomboyish clothes. Because remember, one was always kind of like the more tomboy and one was like the more girly one in most of their movies. And, you know, having to have people dress you all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they were just like, I'm done.
Yeah. They're like, we're going to dress how we want to dress. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but today we're not going to talk about Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Are you sure?
We've been talking all this time and no one knows who you are.
Oh, yeah. We should fix that.
We should fix that right now. For today's episode, I am joined by one of the hosts of the Me vs. You podcast, the one and the only Sam Mattos.
Hi, I'm Sam. Hello. I swear I know more about Mary-Kate and Ashley than I'm letting on, just in case you were worried.
I mean, I'm not worried about that at all. I think that we can all tell that you know a lot about both of them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering how much you know about Harry Potter, because this is, after all, a Harry Potter podcast.
Way too much. Definitely more about Harry Potter than I know about Mary-Kate and Ashley movies. Like Harry Potter, I know more about Harry Potter than I know about myself, probably. Like I know
fair.
Harry Potter is probably number one. Then number two is like song lyrics to obscure songs you haven't heard in 15 years. And then number three is like myself and what my hopes and dreams are. That's how much I know Harry Potter.
I feel that on a like cellular level, Sam, because self-actualization is something I'm struggling with at all times.
Yeah. Like I just turned 30 recently and I had to reevaluate pretty much everything about my life and everything. And I'm like, well, I still know this about Harry Potter and I still know about it in its relation to me. So yeah, it works out.
Well, you know, that's what happens kind of like when you're turning 30, man.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough.
Yeah, you're 30. That's what they don't tell you.
Yeah. I didn't intend for it to be sort of this big, like, momentous occasion, but I turned 30 and it was right around after a year of moving to California. So I live in Los Angeles now. So I'm like, oh, well, I've been here a year and I'm 30. Perfect time for reflection. And then my body just fell apart. It's like, oh, you're 30 now. You're old. Blah.
Yeah, I think I just had an existential crisis at like 25 and then 30. And I'm turning 33 now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a little bit more secure than I did back then. But also I'm just like, will this also be a year of breaking down?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I have it in me again.
I can't do this again. Fair.
I gotcha, girl. But tell me, like, so you know about Harry Potter more than you know about yourself. But when was the first time that you laid eyes upon our beautiful series?
So I actually have a really nice story for this. As a kid, we were talking about earlier, I was the big dork that was like always reading and never really socializing. So I'm still not very good at it. And
You're doing
Yes.
just fine. We're all doing just fine.
Thank you. So I had signed up for a summer program at my local library, and it was a reading contest. And I ended up winning first place. And so I got to pick one of these like 5 books that they had. And one of them was a nice hardcover copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So I was like, oh, this has a wizard on it. I'll take this one. And I was like 8 or 9. And I read it within hours. I was in love with it. And then I think at this point, either the second one had just come out or it had been out for a little bit. And so they were like, oh, well, we have the second one here at the library. And they kind of like sold me on the library. And I'm like, yes, this will be my everything now. So that's how I met Harry Potter.
I mean, that's a beautiful love story.
And then I've read all the books since then. I attended midnight premieres for the movies up through like, I want to say I started like the 5th movie was when I started movie premieres at midnight. And I got my last book at midnight. And oh boy, a lot of moments, a lot of memories with these books.
Yeah, I went to like one midnight book thing because my parents were like super strict. And
fair.
But there was another time where you could just like pre-order it at the bookstore and pick it up the very next day as early as they opened. And I made my parents drive me to the mall.
Nice.
And pick it up. And I believe that was actually, is it Order of the Phoenix that's the longest? One. Yeah, so it was Order of the Phoenix. And I remember after that we went to lunch. And from the bookstore to lunch, I was reading the entire time. I was reading on the car. I was reading while everyone was at home. Then at night we went to a party. I took the book with me because my parents love like family gathering parties, things. Everyone was drinking and eating around me. I was reading Order of the Phoenix and people kept stopping me and like, what are you doing? Are you reading the Bible? And I was like, no, it's more important than that. And I finished reading Order of the Phoenix at like midnight.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm done. Can we go home now? And we were still at the party.
I remember when the last book came out, I was doing a show. And everyone in the cast, we were all super excited. We're like, we're all going at midnight to get the book. We were going at different places. And the director was like, you are not allowed to read this book backstage. Like, your book stays in your bag. We don't want any part of it. So we were doing a Saturday afternoon show and a Sunday afternoon show. So Saturday afternoon, we're all backstage, like whispering about the parts that we're at the book and whatever. And the director kept coming over like, stop talking about Harry Potter. Please stop. For the love of God. Then by the next show, I had already finished the book. So the next day I had already finished it and nobody else had. So I'm just sitting in like a corner by myself, rocking back and forth. Like, I can't talk about anything. I know so many things and I can't say anything. So then the next day we had like a pickup rehearsal and everyone walks in. And by that point they had all finished and they just came over and gave me a hug. They're like, we don't know how you did it yesterday. You are so strong. You are so brave. And I'm like, I know, it was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah. It was so dramatic because I was just like, you guys get it now. It all makes sense.
Well, you know what? I would have said the exact same thing. I'm laughing because I'm like, so dramatic. And I get it. Like, all my friends are always like, here goes Adriana again, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Like, it's pretty understood that if I'm talking about Harry Potter, like, 1, this probably didn't come up organically. I probably brought it up myself. And 2, this isn't going to end anytime soon.
You know what? And I don't see a reason why it should.
Exactly. Thank you.
I mean,
that's why we're both.
That's why I have the podcast.
Exactly.
All right. So in the Harry Potter canon, what house are you sorted into?
Oh, I am wholeheartedly a Ravenclaw.
I keep saying this. I am surrounded by Ravenclaws at all moments in my life.
See, it's funny because I'm surrounded by Hufflepuffs, and I don't know how I did it. I'm a Ravenclaw. Like, I even knew that, like, when it was not cool to be a Ravenclaw. Like when the books were coming out and we were all younger, everyone wanted to be Harry. They wanted to be in Gryffindor, or they were a Slytherin because they were contrary or whatever. And I was like, nah, I'm neither of those things. I'm a Ravenclaw. Like I'm pretty definitely a Ravenclaw. And I've taken every test, and every test says I'm a Ravenclaw. But somehow I'm surrounded by Hufflepuffs. And it's very enabling for me. It's not good. My best friend's a Hufflepuff. My best friend's a Hufflepuff. My sister's a Hufflepuff. A bunch of friends I've made out here in LA are Hufflepuffs. And I'm like, you guys are too accommodating to me. Like, I need someone to just go toe to toe with me and be like, no, do this. Instead, you guys are just like, yeah, all right, Sam, sounds great. And I'm like, no, it's bad behavior for me.
I want more enablers like that in my life.
I know plenty.
Well, I am a Gryffindor, so
okay.
Now you have one in your life.
Yay!
I used to joke that I was a reluctant Gryffindor because every test I was like, no, but I'm really ambitious. Like, what is going on? But I'm not ambitious to the point of like anything at all costs, you know?
Yeah. I think it's that it's like Gryffindor and Slytherin, they would both stand up for what is right. But a Gryffindor would do it to help other people, and a Slytherin would do it to save himself.
Yeah, and I don't do that.
See, I would be very selfish about it because I have that jerk Ravenclaw quality where I'm like, I'm smarter than you. So I would definitely be like, I'm smarter than you. I know how to do this. Let me take care of it. I'm the person. So if I wasn't a Ravenclaw, I'd be a Slytherin. Yeah.
See, but I do that. I do take over, but in like more of like I'm going to help you be better.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to help you be better.
But also, I secretly think I'm smarter than most people in the room.
Yeah. Although part of that could attribute it to like your astrological signs and stuff like that. So,
all right. Yeah. So, what astrological sign would be responsible for this?
Well, see,
let's see if you can.
I know for me, I'm an Aquarius sun. I'm a Taurus moon and a Libra rising, which means I have all these fanciful ideas. I have the capability to lay the groundwork and create a foundation and actually make a plan. And then I have just enough charisma to get everyone to go along with this crazy idea I've come up with. That's how I've analyzed my life.
Well, okay. All right. I'm going to tell you my sun, my rising, and my moon, and let's see what we can come up with. Okay. I'm a sun in Gemini, a rising Virgo, and a moon in Scorpio.
Okay. That's a lot going on. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about astrological signs, but all of them are like, all the ones you just said, I'm like, I got a vibe.
That's a whole lot of things going on, let me tell you.
Going on. And that's all that's all I got. I got a vibe.
I'm like super extra, and I think that's why.
Oh, for sure. That combination of astrological signs means that you are just a little bit extra for everything. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a bit.
Well, sometimes just a little bit.
But I think like I think it's funny because like supposedly like the rising in Virgo, you know, so the rising is I guess what you show yourself to the world as being. And when everyone meets me for the first time, if I'm in like a professional setting or I'm feeling kind of shy because I have some social anxiety, they're like, Adriana's so serious and meticulous and organized. And then they get to know me and they're like, she's extra as fuck. She has a sense of humor. I didn't know you had a sense of humor. And also like, yeah, she's bright and stuff, but she also like jumps from idea to idea to idea to idea. So like that, like I project like this serious, like committed kind of mask to the world. And then they get to know me and they're like, you're crazy as fuck.
Yeah, I don't no, I get the I actually presented this idea once and I was like, okay, so if we skip eating dinner for the next 6 months, we can afford a trip to Disney World. Here's the math. Here's why we should go to Disney World. What do you think? And my ex very appropriately vetoed the plan, but he was very impressed by how much work I had done.
I love it so much.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and then I think is it the moon? So my moon is in Scorpio, and the moon is kind of like your truest self. Is that true?
It's like your approach to things, I think.
Okay.
So I think like your sun is who you are on the inside, and your rising is who you are, like who you present to people, and then the moon is kind of like the groundwork for everything. So maybe your approach to things. Because I know I'm a Taurus moon, which is an earth sign, and I think it's an earth sign. I'm so bad at this. It's very grounded, is what I interpret it as, to fit in my crazy logic.
So I think so I looked this up. Okay, it says that the moon rules your emotions, moods, and feelings, and it reflects personality when you're alone or deeply comfortable.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so it says like for a moon in Scorpio, it means that my emotional self is intense, passionate, and a bit dramatic. I don't know. I feel like this is not right.
Well, you can always you can adapt them a little bit. They're purposely vague so that you can keep them.
No. Like, I joke, I kid. This is definitely me.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
just a bit dramatic, just a little bit.
How dare you not recognize that's what I meant? That was your subtext, right? I got it. That time.
Never.
Nice.
Yeah, but then like I think like the whole Gemini thing is like supposedly like quick-witted and dynamic and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you mix that with like intense and a bit dramatic, it's kind of a powerful combination.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and I have been told that I am a bit of a lot.
That's okay.
So I have to tone it down sometimes.
Hey, no judgment. I am also a bit of a lot.
But you know what? I think that's also gendered, because men don't get told that.
That's true. But whatever.
Patriarchy.
Ugh. Damn patriarchy.
Gross.
Right?
Speaking of the patriarchy, I hope this is not a male character, but which character do you most identify with?
Well, let's talk about the biggest male. No, I don't have anything. I can't even do that. No, Hermione is always the one that I identified with the most. Mostly because it's exactly how I would have been if I went to Hogwarts. I would have been like, I want to learn everything. I will accept nothing less. I will take every class you have. I will live in your library. Let me learn everything. As I've gotten older, I've actually related. I try to reread every year, so I've been relating a lot more to Luna, which is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrifying thought. Mostly because...
Why is it terrifying for you?
For me, I like to have that structure, and Luna does not have the structure. She's very feelings. She's very let it go. She's very go with the flow, which I have trouble with on occasion. But as I've gotten older, I've related to her more because I just sort of like her approach of it. I like sometimes you can't analyze everything before you go into it. Sometimes you just kind of have to believe you can do it and then do it. And that's it. So I'm like, okay, yeah. And I think my shift from Hermione to Luna has really cemented me as a Ravenclaw. Yeah. Still.
So that reminds me of
overanalyzed it though. So.
No. I like this approach because that reminded me of a book on leadership that I was reading. I can't remember the name right now, but they were talking about how we oftentimes like to think of ourselves as purely logical creatures, and that emotion has nothing to do with our supposedly reasonable interactions in like the workplace and stuff like that. But there was this one case where I think someone had like a brain injury that stopped them from like having like access to emotions or something like that. And that person could not prioritize to save his life because emotion is a driver of why we prioritize some things over another. So everything kind of without emotion, everything kind of looks like the same priority level.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. My friends used to joke that I was an emotionally stunted robot. That like I just had this disconnect between me and emotions. And even now I joke with my boyfriend where I'm like, no, I have emotions. I just don't want to admit them and look weak, which is also an emotion. Like it's a work in progress for me. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, you can't just look at everything, from the hard facts. There has to be subjectivity. There has to be emotion to it. Otherwise it doesn't mean anything.
Okay, so my Ravenclaw husband, when we were dating, he wasn't unkind. He was very kind all the time. But like emotions is like a thing that he struggled with expressing and, and
Respect.
maybe just also processing them. So I joke with him all the time that like when he realized he loved me, he freaked out because it was a glitch in his system.
Yep. I said that to my boyfriend like last weekend. I was like, oh, I didn't see you today. I miss you. Is that weird? And he's like, no, we're dating. We're together. And I'm like, it's still kind of weird though, right? Like that I missed you because I care about you. And he's like, no, we're dating. That's what that means. Yeah.
Sam, there's a glitch in your programming.
Right?
Yeah.
404 does not exist.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that brings back memories. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Glad to help.
Okay. The last question I have for you is, what is your biggest hot take or controversial opinion about the series?
Okay. And I might get it for this one, but I don't care. I believe this. I believe that every character, good or bad, can have a redemption arc. I've had this fight many, many times in the past few weeks with Game of Thrones, so I won't get into it because we don't have 9 hours. But I think that Harry Potter does a really great job of showing good redemption arcs, but also bad redemption arcs, or redemption arcs that aren't redemption arcs. So Draco Malfoy, for instance, has the potential to have a really good redemption arc, but he's just not in enough of the book to have a good redemption arc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that being said, Severus Snape did not have enough of a redemption arc, and I don't feel bad for him.
So I've long said that Snape is an incel, is what he is.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Like young Snape is an incel. I feel like older Snape maybe grew out of that mentality outwardly. Like, did he though? Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't be like on Twitter or anything blowing up people's DMs being like, why won't you date me? But he's probably like a closet incel.
But just with one person, with like obsessing over one person who rejected him because he was what he's shown of himself and his memories is very selective. But even within that, you can see that he didn't just call Lily a mudblood. He called her friends mudbloods before. So it's not like he slipped, he was being terrible to everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I don't care if he did it to fit in or not,
And even if he did it to fit in and he feels bad about it, what did he do to fix it? Nothing. He did nothing to fix it. He apologized to her because he felt bad that he made her feel bad, but he didn't chastise his friends. He didn't change his behavior. He didn't do anything. And yet now he's like a martyr for love or something. And I'm not down for that.
Well, and when we think about it also, it kind of reminds me of like that idea of if some like white guy marries a person of color or a white woman marries a person of color, does that mean they're not racist? No.
No.
That doesn't mean they're not racist. Just because you want to fetishize and like desire someone of a person of color doesn't mean that you're not racist.
It wasn't even like he thought of Lily as a person anymore. She was an object. He objectified her the entire time. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to get on a soapbox and say James Potter was the best, because he also had his faults, but like he atoned for them. Obviously he did something, because Lily was very clear and aware of where Snape was heading and what he was doing to better himself versus what James was doing to better himself. And something was there. I don't know what it was, but you know, something was there. So yeah, I know so many people who are like, Snape is a tragic hero for unrequited love. And I'm like, nope. I'm wildly gesticulating. Nope. I'm not great for audio things that aren't visual.
Next time, Sam, we should do a video.
just know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Noted. All right, so today we're going to be talking about chapter 28, The Madness of Mr. Crouch, and it opens with them sending a letter to Percy, and them being Harry, Hermione, and Ron.
Yep.
And they troop down to the kitchen to give Dobby his new socks, which, of course, Dobby is thrilled.
Dobby's so great.
Dobby's the best. Hermione's asking about Winky, who, you know, she's like drunk on butterbeer and not looking great.
She's not doing well. No.
And then Hermione tries to convince Winky that she's better off without Mr. Crouch. And the house elves are like, how dare you say that a free house elf is better off?
They get so mad. They get so mad.
Yes. And they throw them out of the kitchen.
As well they should be. They should be thrown out of the kitchen. Like, you can't incite riots.
Well, I think also Hermione is kind of like a little bit insensitive in the way that she talks a little bit down to the house elves instead of trying to understand where they're coming from.
Yes. Yeah, I think, I can wholeheartedly relate to this. She thinks that she's doing the right thing and is completely oblivious to the people for whom she's doing the right thing.
Yep.
Been there, done that.
I mean, act first, ask questions later. A motto to live by. Then Hermione in the Great Hall gets a ton of hate mail from people who have read the Witch Weekly article, and she gets insulted, and one of them has boo butter pus, which makes her like hands get all nasty and gross, and she has to go to the hospital wing. Ugh. That's tragic.
Yeah. Like, she's a child. I think that sometimes it's hard to keep that in perspective. Like, I know that they're at school and it's magic, but like, she's 14 and these people are sending hate mail to a 14-year-old.
But that's kind of like the difference between like gendering like age, because at 14, like girls are like, girls are seen as like, well, they're responsible for their actions, you know? And a boy is like, oh, well, boys will be boys until they're 105.
Yeah, right? Ooh, I don't have 9 years to go into this one either. I'm sorry. We'll just leave it here.
So then, while Hermione's getting the care that she needs because people are the worst, Harry and Ron, the worst. Harry and Ron go to Care of Magical Creatures, and they spend the hour with
Which
Nifflers.
Are so cute. Yeah.
The cutest little critters on the earth.
I don't remember. Did they have them in this movie? I don't think they were in this movie, but they're in the Fantastic Beasts movies, and they're super cute. And I'm like, every time I saw them on the screen, I'm like, I know Hagrid said they'd be terrible pets, but I want one.
one. I want like 30.
Well, I mean, I don't have enough room in my apartment to have 30 nifflers, but
I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, I have 3 chihuahuas, and my husband told me no more dogs,
fair.
so I guess.
But he
no
didn't say
more.
anything about nifflers. Just saying.
He didn't say anything about
that loophole
nifflers,
for
so
you.
maybe,
You're welcome.
you know? Thank you, Ravenclaw.
Thank you.
You're the best. Okay, so that's when Ron finds out that the gold that he paid Harry back for his omnicolors at the World Cup must have disappeared, and then Harry didn't notice that it disappeared, and Ron gets a little bit huffy about like, must be nice not being able to notice.
Yeah, he has these moments, and I understand it because he's 14, and it's hard.
There's a lot of moments like this in this book.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely take books 4, 5, and even parts of 6 and just recategorize them as like teen angst. But
I mean, I feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of teen angst, Hermione continues to get nasty letters about her love triangle. And Hermione is like, that Rita Skeeter has messed with the wrong muggle board.
Yeah. Like, and I think it's funny that that Rowling introduces it here, where everyone, I love how everyone is like, she vows her vengeance on Rita Skeeter, and everyone just kind of shrugs. And it's like, we are halfway through the 4th book here. We know she's gonna do it. Like, why are you doubting Hermione Granger at this stage in the game? What are you doing?
I think people underestimate women, especially bookish women, because they think because we have our noses in books that we are not people of action.
For sure.
And they couldn't be more wrong.
And it will lead to their own downfall and the toppling of the patriarchy.
Malevolent laugh.
Yes. Man, see, if I wasn't a Ravenclaw, I'd be a Slytherin. Anyway.
I love it so much.
Thank you.
Then Ron gets a letter back from Percy, and Percy's like, don't bother me again with your stupid questions. I haven't seen Crouch, but I recognize his handwriting. Thank you very much.
Because that can't be faked ever.
Ever. No,
never
come
happened.
On, dude.
That's never happened.
Yeah.
I gotta say,
what's
though.
That?
Yeah, right? I gotta say, though, I always liked Percy. I know I'm in the minority on that one because he was kind of a pompous ass for a good majority of the books.
Yes, correct.
But I'm just like, yeah, but I'm also a pompous ass on occasion, and you guys still put up with me, so I can put up with it with a character in a book for a little bit. It's fine.
But I feel like he's missing your charm.
Oh, for sure. Also, thank you. I think he could have gotten a lot further in his political aspirations if he had a little bit more charisma, for sure. He had the ambition, but he just didn't have that Fred and George charm. And that's where Ron came in. Actually, no, Ron kind of missed a good chunk of that. That's where Ginny came in. And Ginny
yes.
had it.
So you read my mind because I was thinking if Percy had like that, like a bit of charm like Fred and George, he doesn't have to be fully Fred and George.
Yeah.
Then
that's dangerous.
He would have just, yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been much better off.
For sure. I think that he would have done a lot better politically because he had the ambition and he had the know-how. He just he wasn't good at talking to people or getting people to remember his name correctly. Weatherby.
Well, I can almost, like, because of my social anxiety that I am getting over, I can almost recognize that in myself, but also people call me Andrea all the time, and it really irks me.
Yeah. See, nope. I'm the type of person that people will call me Samantha once, and then they'll be like, blah, blah, blah. Is that okay, Sam? And they just immediately go into Sam. So, I don't know. I got charisma coming out the wazoo, but then I'm like, I can't figure this out. What? Why are you talking to me? So, yeah. It's a struggle. It's a process. Life goes on.
Okay, maybe I just have one of those faces like we were talking about. My like Virgo rising face is just very serious looking and I put people off.
Maybe. They're like, I don't want to, she's going to be mean. So that's okay, Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah, I have this joke of like, because it's happened to me many times. They're like, oh, nice to meet you. What's your name? And I'm like, Adriana. And they go, Andrea? And I go, no, Adriana. And they go, well, nice to meet you, Andrea. Have a good day. And I'm like, you have a good day also.
Yeah, it's like you had the nerve to correct me on saying your name. And it's like, yeah, you said my name wrong. Come on. Yeah.
I'm just going to let it go because if not, I am going to explode.
Yep. Fair. Valid right. Reaction.
Also, I think is there such a thing as like resting Virgo face? Because I think I have that.
I'm going to apologize if you just heard my stomach gurgling in the background of that. Apparently, rage makes me hungry.
Fine. As it does all of us.
Good. I'm in good company.
All right. So then the first task is approaching, and Ludo is there waiting for the champions and tells them that the next task will be a maze, and there's going to be obstacles, and Harry's going to go in with Cedric first, and then Victor, and then Fleur, and they just have to get to the cup, but there's going to be obstacles, and then Ludo, after the spiel, is trying to get Harry to his side to kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. And then Victor Krum's like, hey, dude, I need to talk to you about something important. And it is Hermione.
Yes. I liked this moment because I liked where you get to, him and Harry get to relate on like a basic level where they're like, oh yeah, so you're good at Quidditch. Yeah, me too. And there's none of like the fancy, there's none of the politics going on. But it's also just they're like, you realize that like, they're only like 4 years apart. They're still kind of kids. They're just talking. And it's like a real concern for him. Like, hey, I like this girl. Does she like you or not? If she does, like, that's great. But I want her to like me. Like, yeah. I like that.
Well, also, he's just not used to being vulnerable, I don't think. But then he also knows that he needs to be nice to Harry after Harry's like, no, we're just friends. Cause like, oh, I need her friends.
Yeah. Oh, they're just friends. Me. Shit. They're friends. Yeah. So we're friends too, right?
Well, yeah. And then this lovely cozy moment gets interrupted by one Mr. Crouch.
I remember reading this and being like, what is going on? What? Why is he turning up? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And he's not making any sense. Then he thinks he's talking to Weatherby at points in this. And then he says something about Dumbledore. And Harry's like, I'm going to go get Dumbledore. Victor, please stay and like make sure Mr. Crouch doesn't go. And everyone gets involved. Crouch and by the time Harry gets back, Victor is like unconscious.
And Karkaroff is like, you're conspiring against us. It's not fair. And then Hagrid goes all half giant and like chokes him out. And then nothing's really resolved other than they send Harry back to his room.
You know, I mean, they all almost start like a political war against the schools.
Yeah. They're like, oh, well, this isn't just a battle between the kids, like in a competition or whatever. It's also like every school for themselves. Although I do like this situation, which doesn't often happen in Harry Potter, where the adults are genuinely trying to fix the problem. And they're trying to not have the children involved in fixing the problem, and the children just kind of get involved. So, like, in the Sorcerer's Stone, they're trying, but it doesn't work out. This one, they're, like, trying harder. They're like, no. Harry figured out all the stone stuff, so we gotta keep him we gotta keep him away from this. He's gonna figure this out. We need to do it. We're adults. He's a kid.
Yeah. Fair, I mean, I guess.
I mean, we have many more books that tell us that he's just going to figure it out anyway. But I like the adults trying. They're going through the charade of being like, no, we as adults will take care of it.
Well, I just like this trope in young adult fiction and in children's fiction where the children and the teens are more in tune with what's actually happening than the adults.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I would say Dumbledore is always pretty in tune with things.
But he also has the heart of a child in a way.
True. He is just kind of a big kid. Him and Hagrid. Big kids.
Yeah. I mean, he's very responsible adult. I'm not saying that, but he's had to humble himself down from his ideas of grandeur, which I think when we are too cocky and we think we know everything, we are going to miss everything that's happening around us. So when we're children and young adults and we're trying to figure out life, we're more attuned to what's happening around us.
I feel called out a little bit. I respect that.
No, I am calling myself out because sometimes I'm a little bit too much, as we've discussed.
Sometimes I'm a little bit too focused on things, and I'm like, "Wait, what's going on? Why are people here now? The sun is up now? What?" Yeah,
yeah. I joke with my therapist because I'm like, I know I'm pretty bright because I did, super well in school and I'm pretty successful in my job and all these other things. But sometimes people meet me and upon, passing that point where they think I'm too serious, then they think I'm a ditz. And I'm not a ditz. It's just that my brain has so many things going on that sometimes I miss like more mundane things happening around me.
I used to work with a lady who is convinced I had ADD. And she's like, you just can't sit still and you just have so many things going on and you're forgetting all these stupid little things. And I'm like, yeah, because they're stupid little things. Like, I remember all of the important things I need to do. Also, I can't just sit here all day. There's a lot of important things to do. You can handle the stupid little things. I'll go do this thing. Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes I even struggle doing the little stupid things because I'm like, why am I doing this? Someone else could handle this. I'd rather do the more complex thing.
Yeah. See, I finally figured it out that like I shouldn't be a person who's in charge of everything because then my personality is just I'm better than everyone and I'm going to do it. And then I just stress myself out and cry for weeks. So instead, I'm going to be that person in the background who's slowly manipulating all the little things. And then here you go. And you can take the credit and you can have your name on it. But we all know who did it. I'm smiling really smugly right now for those who can't see.
Which is all of us, Sam.
It's all of us.
All of us.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of today's politic, which is the politics of information, because you're holding on to that information that you have that you did all the crucial work, even though it has your name on it. Person who didn't do anything.
The worst. I definitely called people out in college, though. Like, when it got to college time and we were doing PowerPoints and I was the one who did 70% of the work, I'd be like, and presentation, bye, and then my name in giant letters and everyone else at the bottom. I'm not subtle. I'm not known for my subtlety. Yeah.
I feel like we're going to be great friends.
Me too. I'm so excited.
Because I'm extra. So, like, lack of subtlety and my extraness, we'd make such a formidable team.
We could really do it.
You know what?
Yes.
Let's bring it.
We'll have to wait until the recording's off.
What? You can't do it while we're recording?
Years.
I had more faith in you.
We only have like an hour and a half. And we got to get to the politics.
All right, fine. I'll get to the politics anyway. So gaining information, in my mind, can be seen as a form of currency, but it's also seen as dangerous. Like in the Bible, which is that historical text that people read for spiritual or historic reasons, mine more historical than anything.
That thing that you earlier said was not as important as Harry Potter.
Yes.
That thing.
You're welcome. Please don't quote me, people.
I'm quoting it in my heart.
Yeah. No, sure. This is going to come back to haunt me, but it's okay. God knows. She will understand. Anyway,
yes.
Knowledge in the Bible has been used as this idea of the original sin. So, there's like historical and mythical connotations about gaining knowledge and trafficking in information. Mm-hmm. And in this chapter, the house elves view information about freedom as something that constricts rather than liberate them. And Hermione gets hate mail due to erroneous information being reported. Rita Skeeter traffics in information literally and figuratively because she gets paid to do this work.
Yeah, she's a gossip columnist.
Exactly. Hagrid modifies his classes due to information and feedback and gives us nifflers because before this, we had the Blast and the Scroots. Then he had to miss class. So then, Grubby... Professor Plank. Professor Plank was like, hey, here's some unicorns. And everyone was like, I love this class now. And Hagrid's like, oh, maybe I should give more cuddly animals.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should do a class that doesn't set people on fire. Good move, Hagrid. Good move.
It's just so those little details, Sam.
Yeah. Yep.
Then Krum is trying to get information from Harry, and Mr. Crouch struggles to get information to Dumbledore because someone or something is stopping him.
Bum, bum, bum.
So much information going on.
I know. When I saw that today was going to be the politics of information, I was like, politics of information? And then I reread the chapter and I was like, yep, it fits.
I try. I really try.
This whole chapter is about trafficking information. Is about and we can talk about it more a little later because you have a section where we can talk about stuff a little more. But one thing that I thought was really interesting in this chapter is how people give and take information. So and it happens a lot in the books, particularly to Harry and Hermione, and in relation to Ron. Ron grew up in this world, so there's a lot of information that he's just learned just as it is. And Harry and Hermione are constantly playing catch up with things. So Ron is very cavalier with his information where he's like, oh, didn't you know X? We could have done this. And Harry and Hermione are a lot more thoughtful about it because they have no preconceived information about it, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, and information, when you're sharing it with someone, you're giving them power over you in a way. And I'm a classic oversharer, and I'm trying to learn this lesson.
Oversharing can be too much.
Yeah, it could be too much for people, and also it can be used against you.
Yes. Yes.
Like that quote about Harry Potter being more important than the Bible.
I mean, I didn't say it because I disagreed with you.
No. Which is, I want to be clear, a joke, but also might have some truth in it.
Yeah.
As all jokes do.
Well, one thing that's interesting too with information is that it's not just between it's not even just the information itself. Sometimes it's also the act of giving information. So one of the things that I wrote down is that Harry and Krum give their information to each other, but Ludo is watching them and they kind of have to move away from him. And so then there's that third person where Ludo doesn't know what they're talking about. Ludo's nervous that they could be talking about him, or what are they doing? Why are those two, that could be wrong for whatever plan he's got going on. So it's not even just the information itself, it's who you're choosing to give the information to and who's not hearing the information. So that plays a part here as well. That's why Karkaroff is like, you're all conspiring against me. And they're like, obviously we're not doing that. We don't care enough about you to conspire against you.
Yeah, I mean, Ludo could have just been, super insecure and be like, do they think I'm a creep?
Yeah.
Are they thinking that I'm just like a creepy old dude? or that I'm not qualified for this job. Like, what's going on?
And then conversely, Harry and Krum move away because they see Ludo hanging around looking like a creep. They're just like, what? Let's go talk. Over there. Let's go talk over there.
In the Forbidden Forest, which is dangerous, but also not as dangerous as this creep who tries to overhear us.
Exactly. So they have to go to some length to trade their information. So then you also get it's not only the information, but it's also how the information is passed and in what context. So I think that's really interesting too.
Well, and information being valuable enough so that Rita Skeeter is banned from the grounds.
Exactly. And also information being valuable in that Mr. Crouch is trying to say something, and we ultimately know what he's trying to say because we've read these books on multitude of times. But at this point, like, they can see, even with the limited information they have about him, they can see he's struggling to say something and he can't get it out.
Yes, exactly.
This stuff's neat.
All right, I think it's time we get even deeper and go to our quotes. Mm-hmm. So, Sam, what was the quote that you picked to describe the politics of information in chapter 28?
So I picked one that happened really, really early on. It's right after they left the kitchen, and it's Ron. So it's, "You couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you, Hermione?" said Ron angrily as the kitchen door slammed shut behind them. "They won't want us visiting them now. We could have tried to get more stuff out of Winky about Crouch." And the reason I picked this quote is because they recognize that Winky has information that they want, and they need to figure out how they can get it. And obviously, Hermione's brash plan didn't work. But it doesn't. One thing that I thought was interesting was that Ron was playing this game. Like, Winky has information that we want. We need to get it out of her. And Harry and Hermione were totally oblivious to this. Like, they didn't think about it. They didn't have this plan. But Ron was just like, yeah, this makes sense. This is the natural thing that we do. This person has stuff, we want it, we get it. So
I think that comes from living with siblings.
True.
Because even though Harry has, like, Dudley, which is like a kind of sibling, he's not truly part of that family.
Yeah.
So he can't traffic in information in the same way that Ron has to traffic in information to keep himself safe.
Yeah, right. But even that, so there's a lot of information that Ron just has because he's a wizard, but then there's also just the family dynamic of it. So Hermione's a girl and Ron is a boy, so there's that difference. And then Ron has siblings and Harry and Hermione don't, there's that difference. So obviously this is the best plan, is that they were going to talk to Winky to find out more about what she knows about Crouch. They're all in agreement on this. They all agree that that's a good plan. But Harry and Hermione tend to be the ones to be like, we need to vocalize the plan. We need to actually make...
No, they have a brasher and bolder approach. Yeah. And Ron is like, this is not how you get information out of people.
Yeah. And it's really funny that Ron is the one who's trying to be slick now, when, like, 5 chapters ago, he was being a real dickhead.
Only 5 chapters ago? Like, all the chapters ago.
Like, this entire book, he's been kind of a D-bag. Like, he is letting his hormones go wildly unchecked for the majority of this book. But...
Well, I think it's also much easier to have, like, tact when you're not as emotionally invested in something, because everything else he was too emotionally invested in.
True. And yeah, it is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black. Like, how could you ruin this for us? Why didn't you keep your chill? And then they just are like, remember the Yule Ball where you had 0 chill? You can't argue with us.
Hey, bro, remember when you were like, that's not the point?
Remember when you invited one of the hottest girls in school to the dance and then didn't acknowledge her for 4 hours? Where was your chill then?
Oh, God. God. Boys are the worst.
We can take them all down. We got this.
Mm-hmm.
We got this.
We got it. All right. So my quote is also a very tiny moment in the chapter, because we talked about the broader moments in the chapter, but I wanted to specifically look at a tiny moment of information. And it goes, "Hang on," said Hagrid, looking into the crate. "There's a spare Niffler here. Who's missing? Where's Hermione?" "She had to go to the hospital wing," said Ron. "We'll explain later," Harry muttered. Pansy Parkinson was
that bitch
listening.
Is always listening.
So, I mean, if we don't have a Pansy Parkinson in our lives, we are Pansy Parkinson.
Oh, my God. Ugh. I just did, and I'm like, am I the Pansy Parkinson? I'm like, no, I'm definitely not the Pansy Parkinson, but I thought I was.
I thought I was
for like 10 seconds. You had me nervous for a second until immediately someone else's face popped in. I'm like, oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah, that person. So this is a smaller incident where we see how everyone is aware that information is a valuable resource, except Ron, who was like trying to be slick earlier.
That's all.
And that there are people who traffic in information as like social currency. So the reason why Pansy is trying to listen in is because she's like, I can't wait to tell everyone else, you know?
Yeah, so there's gathering information for the purposes of using it in different ways. So there's gathering it to use it socially. There's gathering it to use it proactively. So using it to then act upon it. Like, oh, she said she wants to do X, so let's get X done. But yeah, Pansy's the worst. I had another thought there, and then it just got replaced with Pansy's the worst. I trailed off.
Well, I think that's very eloquent of you.
You have to say it like John Ralphio, though. The worst.
Oh, that moment. Iconic. Iconic. Just like Britney and Justin's denim
I think I
outfit.
use that quote daily. For a while, minor interjection. Before I moved out here, I was staying with my sister before I moved to California. So I was living with her, saving up money and stuff like that. And I made a joke with a friend, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to go home to my sister's couch because technically I'm homeless. And my friend did not appreciate it. And I was like, it's just for the joke. I have a home. But yeah, I thought you'd get it. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, you know, that friend has no chill.
What are you talking about? Oh, right. That other thing that consumes your life.
Cool.
Nice.
So we talked about our quotes, but in particular for you, who is the character that exemplifies the politics of information?
For this chapter, it was Ron. I think I really liked the idea of him, and you see it more in other chapters and in other books, but I liked in here specifically the instance where they get their Easter candy and Hermione's candy's so much smaller, and she's like, your mom doesn't read Witch Weekly, does she? And Ron's like, oh yeah, she gets it for the recipes. Like, how did he not tell her that? Just
well, it's like I get Playboy for the articles.
She gets it for sure she does, but also like he has seen her life be ruined by this article in this magazine, and then just now is like, oh yeah, my mom saw it. Did you not know that? And I just liked the idea of it, that for him, he thinks that like his brain is laminated and you can just see everything inside it. And he has no filter for things. He's trying so hard to be like, we could have gotten information out of them. And it's like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not good at this.
Well, in reality, Ron's brain is not transparent to anyone,
Exactly.
least of all
Like,
himself.
He doesn't even know what information's in there. So that's what
His self-awareness completely lacking.
so that's what I liked, is that he share everything about him is very transparent. So he is good to help get information because he's very genuine. So when you can tell when he's lying because it takes him a minute. So he wears his expression on his face. At the same time, though, that's not good for like keeping secrets. He's not good at that. So like I put down, he wants a niffler and he's very not quiet about it. When he kind of has his teenage angst moment of the chapter and is sad because he doesn't have money, and he's like, oh, it must be nice to just not notice a whole pocket of money go missing. And they're like, we had other things going on. We were busy. Yeah, we were doing stuff. Were we at the same thing?
Did we not almost get arrested,
were you
Ron?
Not there?
Calm down.
And then particularly when he warns Hermione about Rita Skeeter and then only lets Hermione know Mrs. Weasley reads the magazine after the Easter candy arrives. Like, he knows who Rita Skeeter is, not just in the context of this article that she's doing and what she's doing for the Triwizard Tournament, but also like, he's grown up with Rita Skeeter articles, and he's grown up with the Witch Weekly magazine hanging around the house. And it's just like, what are you doing?
Well, I think he truly believes his mom only gets it for
like,
the recipes.
I 100% am sure that Witch Weekly has like Channing Tatum shirtless on the cover of it every week. It has to.
Or, Gilderoy Lockhart back when he was the babe.
I like this. For sure. Yeah.
Just like a spread in the middle of the magazine.
Like, hanging out, like, sweaty for no reason, leaning on a broomstick, just wiping his brow. And it's like, Lockhart, hard at work. And it's like, oh, yeah, but I'm reading this for the recipes.
Yeah, no, they just have great recipes, dear.
Out of that magazine. I don't care that we're ordering takeaway.
Yeah.
So that's who I connected it with was Ron. And then the second half of the chapter, he's not even in. But that's a whole nother, like, it should be 2 chapters, really.
Right, a lot happens in this chapter. There are chapters where I'm like, well, this one thing happened and that is all. And this one, I'm just like, God, it was a very eventful chapter in terms of scenes. And the only thing tying them together for me was information.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of information. Yeah, there are some chapters that it's like, and this, the end. And then some that it's like, whoa, I need to go back and reread this. A bunch of stuff just happened.
Yeah, exactly. And then my character is Rita Skeeter, because even though she is not physically in this chapter that we know of,
for sure,
her presence is felt. And, because Hermione gets all that hate mail, a smaller Easter gift from Mrs. Weasley, and she makes her living by gathering information. So, what is the incentive there? The incentive is to make the information you gather as salacious as possible so that you can make your living, because that's how you trade in your worth. But does that mean that it's going to be the most objective truth? No. Of course not, because that doesn't sell anything.
No money. She's like the Carrie Bradshaw of this, where like, she should not have as much of a reputation as she does, considering how little work she does. She just talks a lot of crap about people, and yet is in multiple magazines. Like, she's in Witch Weekly, and she's in the Daily Prophet. How is she making this money? Where is this coming from?
Listen, Sam, listen. Those lime green suits are not going to buy themselves.
I mean, that quick quotes quill, I'm sure, is not cheap.
I keep saying that she gives bright colors a bad name, much as Professor Umbridge
For sure.
gives pink and
I
cats
always
a
thought
bad
of it
name.
because the books take place in the 90s. I always thought of Rita Skeeter as like an 80s throwback. So like she's just in those bright neon colors with these giant shoulder pads. Just like, no, 1988 will always be cool. That's how I always pictured her.
You know what? I see that.
Yeah.
I see that. I'm sure that Rowling was like, I hate these reporters who are stuck in the 80s. But I like your comparison to Carrie.
I know you just like me. You're just complimenting me. It's okay.
No. I just really liked your comparison of Rita Skeeter to Carrie Bradshaw because, like, Carrie is the absolute worst.
I'll be honest, I've seen very little of Sex and the City. But my constant question for it is like, she writes one column, like once a month. How does she afford her entire life? Like,
that is a question we all ask ourselves.
Like, I work full time and I'm still trying to afford my entire life. And my life is like a 10th of Carrie Bradshaw's life. I just need to know how this happened. If it's magic, just say magic. Like,
maybe she is Rita Skeeter.
Maybe. I do like the quote unquote fan theory that J.K. Rowling is Rita Skeeter. Have you not heard this? So that Rita Skeeter was banned from the Wizarding World for her salacious reporting, and so she decided to write a book in the Muggle world about a bunch of secrets in the Wizarding World, and it's called the Harry Potter series. Yeah.
This is delightful.
I mean, parts of me are like, that doesn't work. And then other parts of me are like, that works. It could be that.
Oh, see, my theory is much more mundane. It's J.K. Rowling was dealing with her fame in a bigger stage by the time she was writing the fourth book. And she was really upset at gossip people who were trying to like intrude into her life and find some dirt at her rising celebrity. So she made up like Rita Skeeter as this terrible person.
I mean, that one's probably more accurate, but unfortunately, I don't think it's as much fun.
But I like the fun one.
That should have been my hot take, like right at the beginning.
Okay, so this is your controversial take, amended. We're gonna make a meme of like the guy who's like, convince me.
J.K. Rowling is Rita Skeeter. Change my mind.
Change my mind. Yeah.
Nailed it. I feel so accomplished today.
I feel very accomplished today. But we are nearing the end of the episode. And every episode, we end with the media we've been consuming. So what have you been watching or reading?
Well, I've been trying to get more into reading. Every year I try to read new books, and this year I've been slacking a lot because I've been replaying old video games, which is usually really fun. But I've been it's usually really fun, but I have like one big game that I'm waiting for, so I'm like, no, I'm gonna read, and then I'll wait for the game. So I've been reading a lot more nonfiction lately, which is very new for me. So the book that I've been reading lately, and I'm super obsessed with it, is called Tinseltown. It's Murder, Morphine, and Madness at the Dawn of Hollywood. So it's about it's about old Hollywood, living in LA. Just everything has old Hollywood stuff, like just anywhere. You can go anywhere and be like, John Wayne ate here once, or, this person did this thing here. And I just think it's really neat. So this book is about the murder of director William Desmond Taylor and how it kind of threw old Hollywood for a loop. It's really neat. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. I might have to check that out. So what game are you waiting for? I'm curious.
Borderlands 3.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite game series ever. It's really open world. It's really goofy. It's got a lot of serious stuff to it, but it doesn't take itself seriously. And I think that's what I like the most about it. Also, they did just release a couple of months ago, they released a trailer for Dragon Age 4. And that will be my entire life when that comes out. But that's not until like next year or the year after.
Well, hopefully not your entire life, because you got to afford that rent in LA, unless you find a way to make playing the game the way you afford living in LA.
I wish. Oh, God, I wish. It is not cheap to live out here. Like, people told me that, but it's still not.
Well, I think it's a scale problem. You knew intellectually that it wasn't cheap. You were just not calculating the right scale.
Yeah. It was like my idea of not cheap and other people's idea of not cheap aren't compatible.
Same.
Their idea of not cheap is me being like, what? So I just blew your mic a little bit. You're welcome.
My idea of like not being like of other people's not being cheap is like, no, thank you. I'm not going to chop off my arm. Yeah, no, I get it. So I too have a book that I've been reading, but this one's fiction. It's called With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. And it's about a like Afro-Latina teenager who is in her senior year of school, and she has a 2-year-old daughter.
Oh, okay.
And she lives with her grandmother, and she, it's like about, the struggles of being a single parent with, an elderly grandmother who raised you and all these other things. And she's really gifted at cooking. And she's learning, she's taking a culinary arts class for the first time. And there's like a struggle there because it's really tough. And she has a great instinct around the kitchen, what works and what doesn't. And this class is trying to show her structure and how to follow rules and conventions before you break out of them. And so she's struggling with all these parts of her life. But the prose is so beautiful, and I'm just in love with like the metaphors, the similes, and like the beautiful language that the author uses, and how, because I'm my first language is Spanish, and when I was growing up, I was always taught of like, if you say a word in Spanish to a non-Spanish speaker, specifically a person who just speaks English, you need to explain that to them, and like in parentheses if you're writing, or like, because like you have to accommodate the English speaking person, and she doesn't do that. And I find that so refreshing and beautiful. So it's like, but it's not enough that you wouldn't be able to figure it out in context. But in the same way that some authors use like French words without explaining them in English, she does that with Spanish. And I find that beautiful.
That's awesome. I'm glad to know it's about cooking, because when I saw the title With the Fire on High, I was like, that's how I cook everything, with the fire on high. And that's probably bad.
I think it's a beautiful book, and it has like great representation, and it's about, Latino and Afro-Latino characters mostly. So I think that that's something that I at least have been missing in like my fiction,
definitely. That's awesome. That sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't make like that thing like, so I was just thinking about this morning. It doesn't do that thing where we talk about how different we are than, other people or people who are white or whatever. And it's just so unapologetic, and it doesn't point out the differences, doesn't explain the differences. It just is.
That's so important. Like,
because then it doesn't make me feel ostracized. So important.
Like, it's one thing to accommodate if you have to translate the entire book into another language, but it's another thing where like it's part of the storytelling. And it's made for a specific audience. So you shouldn't have to tailor that to people just because they don't get it, or they like, then you're not the audience. Just accept it. Just go with it.
And I think like if you don't get it, then you have resources at your disposal to read on it. We have the internet, is what I tell a lot of people. I used to do a lot of emotional labor around explaining things to people, and I still do when I care about someone and I can tell it's genuine. But like if I can tell that they're just kind of baiting me and they're going to anyway not listen to me, I'll say, you have the internet on your phone.
Yeah.
Why don't you just Google
Translate is everywhere. You can do it all the time. You don't need this.
Or, you know, when they ask like, oh, so why has like Puerto Rico not decided if it wants to become a state? And I was like, well, it's much more complicated than I have time for you right now. So read a book.
I got the reputation really quickly in my office as being the one who's familiar with like politics and stuff like that. And anytime someone says that, I'm like, you can look it up or I'll talk to you at 5:01 because I don't have time for this.
Yeah, no, or I can give you the name of some books and resources and you could figure out by yourself because I am done with doing all this emotional labor. Thank you.
Yeah, you're just baiting me.
Because I'm not going to change their mind.
Saying antagonistic crap. So, talk to me at 5:01.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, specifically.
Yeah. But I'm glad you like your book, though.
It's fantastic. And again, I think what gets to me the most is like, it's not like trying to be like, and here's all these like Latino cliches. It just is.
It just is. That's good.
So it's pretty good.
Awesome.
But before we leave, tell us about your podcast and where we can find you on social.
Oh, sure. So I'm Sam, and I'm one half of Me Versus You. So Me Versus You is my best friend and I. We record every week where we watch movies with each other. So each week we have a category, and we each pick a movie that the other hasn't seen that we think best fits the category. We watch both movies, and then we fight incessantly about it. Very rarely do we agree wholeheartedly on things. And we always try to declare a winner. I occasionally railroad her and pressure her into voting the way I want. And then she occasionally picks purposely antagonizing movies to make me suffer. But it's fun. It's a good time. And we try to be funny about it if we can. We're on Me Versus You on Facebook and Twitter at Me Versus You Podcast. And you can also check us out on our website, meversusyoupodcast.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Don't Panic Llama, because it's the username I made for myself when I was 15, and I'm going to use it forever. That's me.
And then, so for your social handles for the podcast, it's Me vs You Podcast, correct?
Yes, MEVSYOU Podcast. Because apparently there's something else going on that's Me Versus You. I think it's just people being passive aggressive via hashtags, writing Me Versus You. So I was like, we'll make everything podcast so that we are not being passive aggressive about it.
I love it. So give us examples of some recent episodes that you've done.
Let's see. So when we did my birthday week back in February, all of our categories are pulled out at random, so we don't get to pick them. But my birthday week was really, really fun because we got to watch Christmas movies. So I had her watch an old movie from the 1940s, and she had me watch The Santa Claus because somehow I had never seen it. I know that's so my best friend, she picks a lot of movies that like she'll rewatch over and over again. So she has like these staples that she's seen. And then me, I somehow missed all these huge blockbuster movies and only have seen these weird, obscure 40s movies. And that's how we interact with each other. So I had never seen The Santa Claus, and I got to watch it on my birthday.
What a gift.
It was a pretty good gift. One of our latest episodes, we did Why Are These Characters Not Gay? And so I had her watch The Craft, and she had me watch Top Gun, which again, I had never seen Top Gun. All I knew about it is that they played volleyball, and that was about it. That was the best part of the movie, was volleyball. And one of our favorite episodes that we actually did for her birthday, which was like 6 or 7 months ago at this point, was quote, in the current political climate. And we watched movies that were relevant politically. And she actually stepped up her game for that one. We watched Children of Men, which is really dark. And I had her watch All the President's Men, which is one of my favorite movies. And I got to be the one to be like, you've never seen All the President's Men? Where have you been? It's Robert Redford wearing tight corduroys for like 2 hours. What are you doing? So yeah, it's a good time. We try to analyze the movies from like a actual, critical point of view, but a lot of it's just crap. We just talk crap about it sometimes. Sometimes the movie just calls for it.
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes that's all there is.
But it's fun. Every week is something different, and it's always something very different.
Well, I'm going to continue checking out your podcast because I love this idea. And if you ever need a guest, I'm always
Unfortunately,
here.
I know that a lot of the movies that you listed for your second project that you're working on, we've already seen them.
I mean, we could just watch like some. We could just do something else. Like it doesn't have to be in that time frame because I've got the market cornered.
You have that time frame pretty well cornered, so we might have to think of something else. But we'll let you know.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've had such a great time.
Of course. Me too. I've had a lot of fun. I don't think I've talked this intellectually about Harry Potter in a long time.
And that's what we're here for.
Also, this much crap talking about Harry Potter in a long time.
Well, also, that's what we're here for.
Awesome.
Intellectual crap. You heard it here first.
That's going to be my quote that I go down with.
Well, I feel like I returned the favor then.
I still think I got off easy.
You did. Mine is much more controversial.
Yeah, it is. I can't even pretend.
Well, everyone, that's it for the show today. What did you think? You can email me at info@occhiopolitics.com or tweet at me at occhiopolitics. I'll be back with a special guest next week as we talk about Chapter 29 of Goblet of Fire, so stay tuned. Until then, politics managed. Support this podcast for as little as $2 a month on patreon.com/occhiopolitics. Follow the pod on social at occhiopolitics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Email me at info@occhiopolitics.com with your thoughts, theories, and favorite moments of the series. You can also leave me a voicemail to be featured on the podcast at 915-996-1699. Theme music is Think Big by Scott Holmes. This podcast is brought to you by MuggleNet.com.
So, yeah, my mom was so terrified that I was going to become a lesbian as a kid. I don't know why she thought this. I think because I was like the kid who just sat by themselves and was reading. And she was like,
same.
Yeah, she's like, oh no, you're going to be a lesbian. So we were talking about it. One of the episodes we did for our recent podcast was why are these characters not gay? And I was like, oh, great. We get to present the whole list of movies that my mom wouldn't let me watch because she thought I was going to be a lesbian. And we were talking about The Craft. And I just thought those girls were so cool. Like, they dressed cool and they were so confident.
And witchcraft, dude.
And they got to do magic. So I was like, these ladies are so cool. And my mom was like, you let her watch that? And my dad's like, yeah, what? What's wrong? What's going on? Yeah, that was a lot.
So with my Catholic upbringing, I think my mom wouldn't let me watch The Craft because of
witchcraft.
Like the dark magic aspect to it. Like she never had a problem with Harry Potter because it's a kid's book. But they really did have problems with like sexuality depicted in movies. My dad would like turn off the TV whenever a sex scene was happening, or even like a slightly sensual scene. Because let's be real, there were not like explicit sex scenes in any movie in the 90s or early 2000s that I can think of. And, but my mom, like same, my mom was terrified by the time I was in college that I was going to be a lesbian.
She was so nervous about it too. And I'm just like, what? Would that be the worst thing? Like, I could have been on drugs. Like, I could have been dead already. But no, I could be a lesbian, and that's the worst thing for you.
I mean, to be fair, my mother was like, don't have sex, don't do drugs, and also don't be a lesbian. But like I was telling you earlier, no one was offering those things to me. Like, no man had ever come on to me and offered me anything, told me they loved me or needed sex, or drugs were never offered to me because I have like a nerdy narc face, and no woman had ever come on to me either. So like, I don't know what her fears were.
I should have been like, Mom, no guys are wanting to date me. Maybe I can at least get a date with a woman. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, no, she was like, they were all so nervous because she's like, oh, she's not have a boyfriend or like boys or whatever. And I was like, I don't tell you about my life, first of all, because everything's a big deal. And also, I like boys just fine. I just don't tell you about like my recurrent crushes because then you're going to think I'm a hoe, you know?
I think my mom was desperate to think that I was kind of promiscuous. She's like, oh, she's promiscuous. She's not gay.
Really?
I mean, if she's sleeping with a bunch of men, they're not women. I'm okay. I can sleep at night. Yeah.
At least. Yeah, no. My mom's whole thing is like, don't get pregnant. That will bring shame to our family. Yeah.
But then you get the argument of if you're sleeping with other women, you're not getting pregnant.
I know, right? Like that's the appealing part of it for me. It's like, can't get pregnant doing that. But
my mother had no forethought.
Sadly, I loved men too much.
It's like I could have been, but there just weren't enough. I didn't see enough 90s movies to make me a real lesbian. So I guess I'll stick with men.
Well, prove that you are truly born that way. Because if I could, I would have chosen another way.
20-year-old Sam would have been a much happier person and a much more social person.